Hello, Pumpkin Spice Podcast listeners. This is Rob Schulte, one of your hosts of this podcast. Wow, we're really off to an incredible start, aren't we? Well, okay, if you're a new listener, which some of you may be coming in this week, I want to say thank you. You've made a wise choice. This episode's a little bit different because I'm going to jump right into an interview I had with the directors of a new movie called Time Trap, which is out November 13th. You can find out more at timetrapmovie.com. But let's listen to a few things. Escape into Film says, a daunting sci-fi mystery that grips from start to finish. Ain't It Cool News says, a mind-bending shift in the space-time continuum. TheLastThingISee.com says, Time Trap is an imaginative, weird-as-hell adventure. And you know what Pumpkin Spice Podcast says? Hey, that was a lot of fun. So, in this episode, the public-facing side of it will be the interview that I had with directors Mark Dennis and Ben Foster. The other part of this interview will be only on the Patreon. So, if you want to hear the whole episode, go over to patreon.com/pumpkinspicepodcast and become a member. You'll get all the bonus episodes that we put out throughout the year. Our public-facing episodes will show up every now and again. But until then, enjoy this and support the movie. Go see it. Download it November 13th. Take it away, me. Great guys, but let's hear a little bit from them about what Time Trap is actually about.
I'm Ben Foster. I'm one of the directors of Time Trap and also a producer.
I am Mark Dennis. I am the writer and one of the directors of Time Trap. Time Trap is about a group of archaeology students who go down into this mysterious cave looking for a missing professor who has gone looking for the Fountain of Youth. But when the kids get into the cave, they discover that time passes differently underground than it does on the surface.
Pretty intense, huh?
Can I be honest with you? Like, if my professor was missing, I'd be like, sucks for them. Anyway.
These are students who love this guy.
Yeah, they must really love their professor if they're gonna...
I'll say this, I watched the movie. They gave me a screener. Believable. Those students are believable. I think the professor was good. Like I could have gotten a little bit more like on his end about the believability of this connection with the students. But the students, very believable.
Nice.
They're pretty much the main characters throughout the movie, and the rapport is done well. I mean, but that sounds kind of cool. That movie sounds cool.
Definitely.
I mean, from your point of view, I got at that description. I was like, yes, please, give me that screener.
I need to know more.
Yeah, well, here, listen to this.
Well, it came kind of from being in the movie-making world. We had another movie that we were trying to get off the ground, and one of the first steps when you have a little bit of funding and a script, you have a casting director. They send out the script, and you wait on these actors to respond, and they each get like a week. So we wanted that week waiting on Pierce Brosnan to say ultimately no, to just fly by. And I think, Mark thought that, doing it in a cave versus going into a closet or something was a little more fun.
And I think that's something we can all relate to is having some kind of a date in the future that we just want to be there so that we can know where our life is going to go, or even if it's a fun experience or a bad experience, we just want it to be over with. And I think everybody can relate to that, but we can't just step into a closet and come out and it be 2 weeks later or 3 years later. We have to experience life and have time travel happen naturally.
Yeah, so it's kind of a little fun adventure.
Yeah, sounds like a real blast.
I asked them a question about how the film gets made from beginning to end, but they had this to say about it.
It's always been kind of the same thing. When Ben and I first got paired up, I had a script, and Ben was really good with the camera and really great with editing, and had a good visual style that I think complemented a lot of the writing. And when we started making shorts together, we just realized that I don't know anything about cameras. I still haven't learned anything because Ben does that, and our director of photography, Mike Simpson, does that. But me focusing more on the script and the actors and the blocking, and then Ben focusing more on the visual has always been our dynamic. Although I would say that when we've done features, we've really learned to make sure that we're on the same page before. So Ben and I, we really go over the script together, and I mean really. sit there and read it out loud to each other and make sure that everything makes sense, so that on the day we don't run into, oh, this doesn't make sense. That still happens. You can't get away from that. But having our game plan before is really helpful. With the visual stuff, we come up with a shot list, go over everything together, do a lot of the blocking, so that when it's time to shoot, Ben goes off and he does his thing, and then I do my thing, and then the crew, after a few days, figures it out. Like, people know not to come up to me and ask me a question about a jib or the lighting. I would be like, that's a Ben question. And if an actor has a question about blocking, if Ben's busy, he'll be like, that's a Mark question. Or if he's not busy, he's able to answer it.
So, as somebody who's seen the movie, what do you feel like is the key takeaway from Time Trap?
Oh, well, I don't have to answer that because they say it.
I think that the takeaway that people can really get from the movie is that sometimes we do things in our life that screws things up and it's beyond our control. But in the end, we can still be happy as long as we surround ourselves with good people and people that we care about, because we can't always control the result of our lives.
Yeah, see? But then we get into spoiler zone, so if people don't like spoilers, they can skip ahead of this. But I asked them, I was like, I just personally had this question about a couple of issues. One, not issues, but things that were brought up later on in the movie that were kind of intense. A man from the future shows up, and they also come across conquistadors, because it's well, I'm not going to say why, but I will let them explain some of these issues that they think are really going to help people who are on the fence of seeing the movie.
Well, the latter was one of the most interesting things. These are definitely spoilers, but
I would actually leave it, because I think these are really interesting spoilers, because they tell people stuff that's already in the trailer, but they just don't explain exactly what happens. You don't know when this happens, and you know that you're going to see some really crazy stuff.
Yeah, but I think one of the most interesting things about the script was some of the future technology that's towards the end. And I think the first draft that Mark sent me, that's as far as he'd gotten. And it was like page 70, this insane ladder comes shooting out of the top of the cave, and a man from the future steps off. And I was like, holy shit, where's this going? And so it was an awesome hook. And it's also just kind of a lesson, I think, in screenwriting, to really turn everything on its head at the midpoint and do something different. But yeah, I mean, the idea of pitting the future technology people against the people from 10,000 years ago that are also stuck in this cave that our guys just walked into, and in all of their realities, they've all just pretty recently stepped into this cave. But to have a place that they can all end up in a really simple sort of time travel device, I think is one of the most amazing things about the movie.
I also want to add that we weren't sure if it would work. We thought it would work, and on the page it was really interesting, and it was like, wow, this is crazy. And everybody that we showed the script to, they were like, this is bizarre. And we were like, hopefully it's good bizarre. And we weren't even sure until even after we were done shooting, we weren't sure if it worked or not. And sometimes it didn't work, and we had to go back and nurture it and shoot some more stuff and make sure that we explained things better, until we finally got to a point where we showed it to people and they were like, this is really cool. But before we were like, God, hope we didn't screw up. Hope it makes sense.
And for a long time, there were no conquistador visuals in the movie. It was just cut from Riley to, a card that said insane conquistador battle or something like that.
Brittany, I got to tell you, we started talking genre film after that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's they definitely had some things to say, and really, with the magic of editing, I think this will sound pretty cool. Their responses were well thought out.
I think we looked at every time travel movie ever made, because that's probably our favorite genre of movies. Ben's favorite movie is Back to the Future, mine is Terminator 2. And we really there's a low budget movie that most time travel people have heard of called Primer. And I think that was a big inspiration for us, because they handled time travel in such a unique way that you have to actually wait for it to happen. You don't get to, magically shoot forward or backwards. And I think that we wanted to do something like that, was make it so that there's definitely time travel, but make it a little bit different. And I think that in every other movie, people can get the idea of going forward, because we do that naturally. But as far as going back in time, it's something that's not possible. So we wanted to we have enough impossible stuff in this movie. We wanted to take that out of the equation as well, going backwards. I personally really like adventure movies. I grew up in an area of San Antonio that had a bunch of woods nearby, and we were allowed to just leave and go walk through the woods and explore we were given way more freedom than we probably should have in elementary and middle school, but I think that spawned us a sense of adventure. And then we moved out to a area called Bernie, Texas, which is, woods just everywhere. It's out in the hill country. And then that furthered it. I would go further and I would bring gear with me and go for much longer hikes. And I think that those are the movies that I can relate to the most, the Indiana Jones movies. So I think that's what this is. This is an Indiana Jones Goonies movie with some weird sci-fi stuff in it as well.
And then we can wrap up with where you can find it this month. It's in certain theaters as of the time of this recording last week on November 2nd, but it's available online and everywhere on the 13th, but don't take my word for it.
Right, yeah, so the movie's going to be available on November 13th on iTunes, Amazon, Video on Demand, all those places. It's a independent film. We rely a lot on word of mouth. So if you liked it, tell your friends and help us get to a point where we're making the next movie.
To add to that, a lot of people have commented on the YouTube trailer or on our Facebook because they saw the movie in another country, and everybody says, is there a sequel? You've got to make a sequel. You've got to make a sequel. And if any of those people are listening that want a sequel, the only way that a sequel is ever going to happen is if this becomes big enough that there's a big audience and a big demand for it. So if you like the movie, share it on your Facebook, tell people about it, get it out there in the world so that we can make another one.
All right, that'll be it for this week of Pumpkin Spice Podcast. Do us a favor, leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts, or better yet, since you're listening to this on Patreon, find another friend who might want to listen to these episodes on Patreon. The more we make from our patrons, the more goes to our editor, Cameron, which means the more frequent of episodes we can give people. Isn't that exciting, Brittany?
It is the most exciting, to be honest.
I'm standing on my tippy toes right now, thinking of the possibilities of making more episodes.
I'm with you. I'm right there with you.
Okay, that'll be it for this week. Use the hashtag Pumpkin Spice Podcast if you're using social media.